about the use of artificial intelligence or lavender by the IDF in identifying Hamas targets? And secondly, do you agree with Elon Musk about that the population decline is a risk for humanity?
Look, I'm not. Without going into all the I'm not on top of all the details of what's going on in Israel because my bias is to defer to Israel.
You made a short documentary. Now this is about 10 minutes long. I'm going to play it. I wanted to just play a clip of it, but it's very powerful, and I think it's what people need to hear and to understand what's exactly going on. And when I say that your country's being run by a handful of billionaires, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So let's watch this, because everybody had high hope for J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, that they were actually the enemies of the deep state and that the deep state was working against them. Well, now with Dan Bongino and Kash Patel going along with every garbage theory about the deep state and that they're closing down the investigation into the assassination attempt. We now know that those things were not on what they appeared to be, and just same thing with Jeffrey Epstein. So the Trump administration is not what they appeared to be, and neither is Dan Bongino and Kash Patel or any of those people in right now the FDA is still recommending COVID boosters, just so you know. So they're not what they claim to be, but here's this is going to make it clear for people. Here we go.
Thank you very much. Wow.
Donald Trump's second term is off to a controversial start, with his supporters celebrating his executive orders to free Ross Ulbricht, end funding for schools requiring COVID-19 injections, calling for releasing the JFK, MLK, and RFK files, and ending support for U.S. aid.
So that's what we thought was coming. We were all on board for all. Donald Trump's the big fighter against the deep state and all things like that. Well, guess what happened?
Okay, that solves that problem.
However, while the MAGA movement cheers Trump for moving at a rapid pace, many of his supporters appear to be turning a blind eye to the influence of Peter Thiel and the other technocrats. Who is Peter Thiel, and what is a technocrat? Let's dive in. In the early 20th century, a movement began to develop around a political theory known as technocracy, a system wherein management of governments is handled by technical experts, often involving technology-focused solutions. Early proponents of technocracy claimed that the concept would lead to better management of resources and the protection of the planet. However, this system of governance by technological experts and their technology would also involve a loss of privacy, as well as centralization of power and the management of all human behavior.
So this is not a new thing, but now they've figured out a way to seize power, and they've done it. So this is not a new thing. This is an idea that's been around for a long time.
Though the term appears to have been largely forgotten, the technocratic philosophy and influence can be seen everywhere in our modern digital world.
Already beginning to arrive at the huge civic auditorium, where a large receptive audience turned out to hear Howard Scott as he warned of an impending crisis in America's domestic and foreign affairs.
One of the most influential proponents of technocracy was a man named Howard Scott, a writer who founded the Technical Alliance in New York City in 1919. Scott believed that business owners lacked the necessary skills and data to reform their industry, and thus, control should be handed over to engineers. The technocrats publicized their vision of a centrally planned world via books, speeches, clubs, and political parties. This resulted in a brief period of popularity in the US and Canada in the years following the Great Depression. As politicians and economists searched for a solution to the financial calamity, the technocrats imagined a world where politicians and business owners were replaced with scientists, engineers, and other technical experts who would manage the economy. However, in the 1940s, mainstream interest in the technocracy movement seemed to dissipate. The ideas that underpinned the technocratic vision received a notable endorsement in 1970 when political scientist Zbigniew Brzezinski released his book, Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era. Brzezinski will be familiar to long-term researchers of the ruling elite. Until his death in 2018, Brzezinski was a diplomat who ran in the same circles as David Rockefeller and former Secretary of State and accused war criminal Henry Kissinger. Brzezinski served as advisor to several presidents, from Jimmy Carter to Barack Obama. He was also a member of the Atlantic Council, the National Endowment for Democracy, and the Council on Foreign Relations. Although Brzezinski's book Between Two Ages substituted the term technotronic for technocratic, the depiction of the future is the same, a world in which the scientific and technological elite centrally plan the lives of all humanity. Essentially, Brzezinski's vision is a technologically advanced, authoritarian-style collectivism wherein individual liberties are subordinated to the apparent needs of the collective. When we examine the world of 2025, we clearly see the signs of technocratic influence. For example, we can see this influence in the wealthiest companies and the most influential CEOs. These individuals are running companies that have amassed large amounts of financial wealth as well as unfathomable amounts of digital data on all of their customers. From Jeff Bezos at Amazon, Bill Gates of Microsoft, Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, Elon Musk of Tesla and SpaceX, we can see the technocratic ideology. These men and their colleagues in various technological industries wield immense power through their companies, wealth, and cultural influence. These individuals have enough money, resources, and connections to shape elections, geoengineer the climate, and cause dips in the stock market, to name a few examples. They are the technocratic class of 2025. Who is Peter Thiel? Peter Thiel is the infamous co-founder of Palantir, the private surveillance firm with a long history of involvement and collaboration with the CIA. Thiel is also a steering committee member of the Bilderberg Group, the infamously secretive group which represents the interests of the hidden ruling class. In the second Trump administration, Thiel's influence is more visible than ever as numerous associates and acolytes of his are set to play various influential roles. Thiel has a long history of supporting the two-time president.
Tonight, I urge all of my fellow Americans to stand up and vote for Donald Trump.
An examination of Donald Trump's cabinet reveals many connections to Thiel.
Thank you very much.
Vice President J.D. Vance. Despite not giving directly to the 2024 campaign, Thiel has gained well-deserved scrutiny for his role in financing the rise of Vice President J.D. Vance. Vance, the 40-year-old former senator from Ohio, was in attendance at former COO of PayPal David Sachs' June 24 fundraiser for Trump. According to two people with knowledge of the exchange, during this June event, Trump informally polled the room regarding who he should choose for vice presidential running mate. David Sachs and others in attendance all told Trump he should choose Vance. Elon Musk also reportedly encouraged Trump to pick Vance. And a few weeks later, at the 2024 Republican National Convention, that's exactly what Donald Trump did. Thiel and Vance have an extensive relationship. Vance claims that after hearing Peter Thiel deliver a speech at Yale Law School in 2011, he was inspired to pursue a career in big tech firms. He started as a junior investor with the Thiel-backed Mithril Capital in 2016. Vance briefly worked at biotech firm Circuit Therapeutics, a move which then CEO Frederick Moll told the New York Times was, quote, a favor to Peter. In 2019, Vance would found his own venture firm, Narya Capital, with financial backing from the former CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, the billionaire investor Mark Andreessen, and of course, Peter Thiel. When Vance announced his run for Ohio Senator, Peter Thiel was there and gave $15 million to the campaign. With this money, Vance was able to secure a victory, and within 2 years, he was on the way to the White House with the full support of Peter Thiel and the Technocrats. Elon Musk. While Musk is a powerful and influential technocrat in his own right, he and Thiel have their own history of collaboration. Musk and Thiel have been friends for more than 2 decades, and both men received massive financial wealth from their co-founding of PayPal. Thiel has also been a prominent investor in Musk's various ventures, including Neuralink. Musk and Peter Thiel also co-founded America PAC as their vehicle to support Trump's return to the White House. As promised, Trump nominated Musk to lead the Department of Government Efficiency. And while the idea of reducing government waste and increasing efficiency is an appealing proposition, it should also be noted that Musk's talk of efficiency is reminiscent of the little-known efficiency movement, which predated the more well-known technocracy movement. The efficiency movement sought to identify and eliminate waste in all areas of economy and society and to develop and implement best practices. Supporters of this movement included Andrew Carnegie and John D. Rockefeller. Is the goal of Trump and Musk to make government more efficient to serve the people?
We're going to make the future good.
No.
We're going to make it good.
Or is the goal to finally fulfill the dream of the original technocrats and eliminate the political and business classes in favor of machines, artificial intelligence, central planning, and managing society? David Sachs. Sachs is most well known for his involvement in the early days of PayPal, serving as the COO with Thiel as the CEO. He is considered a member of the so-called PayPal Mafia, a name given to the founders of PayPal, who later founded numerous tech companies, including Tesla, LinkedIn, Palantir, SpaceX, YouTube, and Yelp. In June 2024, it was Sachs who hosted a fundraiser for Trump at his home in San Francisco. It was this dinner where the billionaires told Trump he should choose Vance as his running mate. Shortly after his victory in the 2024 election, Trump rewarded Sachs for his loyalty by appointing him as the AI and crypto czar. In this position, Sachs is expected to greatly influence the US government's policies on cryptocurrency and the advancement of AI. Howard Lutnick. Howard Lutnick is the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald investment firm and has become a vocal proponent for Bitcoin in the last couple years. Trump recently nominated him to be US Commerce Secretary. Lutnick is also an investor in Strive Asset Management, which was founded by Vivek Ramaswamy. Peter Thiel, the Founders Fund, and J.D. Vance's Narya Capital also contributed to Strive's $30 million funding round. Lutnick is also part owner of video platform Rumble, founded by Chris Pavlovski. In December 2021, Pavlovski announced his intention to take Rumble public by combining forces with CF Acquisition Corp., a division of Lutnick's Cantor Fitzgerald. Lutnick was also formerly a neighbor to Jeffrey Epstein in New York City and raised millions of dollars for Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign. Lutnick has spoken at the World Economic Forum's various meetings as far back as 2016 and as recently as January 2023. Jim O'Neill.
So Trump's whole cabinet is filled with these with technocrats, these techno-feudal lords. And let's remember that Steve Bannon reminded us and warned us about these people. And hang on, there's more to this.
Donald Trump has appointed Jim O'Neill as Deputy Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. O'Neill has extensive connections and collaborations with Peter Thiel. O'Neill worked at 2 of Peter Thiel's funds, Clarium Capital and Mithril Capital Management, from 2012 to 2019. In 2010, he co-founded Peter Thiel's Thiel Fellowship. He also worked as the CEO of the Thiel Foundation from 2009 to 2012. From 2019 to July 2021, O'Neill was the CEO of SENS Research Foundation, an organization focused on rejuvenation. The SENS Foundation received its initial funding from Peter Thiel in 2006 and 2008, a fact that should come as no surprise given Thiel's own interest in fighting aging using the blood of the young. Ken Howry. Trump named Ken Howry as his pick for the U.S. ambassador to the Kingdom of Denmark. Howry previously served as a U.S. ambassador to Sweden. The connections between Howry, Peter Thiel, and the World Economic Forum run deep. Apparently, Trump sees these connections as a net positive. Howry was another PayPal co-founder with Thiel. The pair also co-founded the venture capital fund, Founders Fund. In March 2012, the World Economic Forum named Howry as a member of the Young Global Leader program. He is also a member of the selection committee for the World Economic Forum's Technology Pioneers program. Howry may have been selected for the role of ambassador to Denmark to help Trump fulfill his goal of annexing Greenland. Denmark has administrative control over Greenland as part of its kingdom. It's interesting that Trump's calls for purchasing Greenland and making it part of the United States literally mirror the original Technocrats' plan for the tech native America, including Mexico, Canada, and Panama as well. Jacob Hellberg. Jacob Hellberg was appointed to be Undersecretary of State for Economic Growth, Energy, and the Environment. Hellberg donated $2 million to Donald Trump's 2024 presidential campaign. He is an ardent supporter of Israel and a former supporter of Democrats who has said that his shift to Trump was a result of Democrats becoming, quote, anti-Israel. Hellberg is also a senior advisor to Palantir Technologies, the private surveillance firm co-founded by Peter Thiel. Hellberg is also a senior advisor to Alex Karp, Peter Thiel's co-founder and current CEO of Palantir Technologies, and a fellow Bilderberg steering committee member. Donald Trump has named Michael Kratsios to serve as a science advisor and director of the White House's Office of Science and Technology Policy. Kratsios was the first Trump administration's policy specialist on artificial intelligence, drones, quantum computing, and cybersecurity. Kratsios worked for two of Peter Thiel's funds, Thiel Capital and Clarium Capital. It is abundantly clear that the second Trump administration is stacked with allies of Peter Thiel, the technocrat and steering committee member of the Bilderberg Group. One final point worth noting relates to Palantir's blind support for Israel and the Zionist cause. In November 2023, Palantir issued a letter to shareholders that stressed the company's support for Israel's quest to ethnically cleanse Palestinians. Quote, "We are one of the few companies in the world to stand up and announce our support for Israel, which remains steadfast. Palantir stands with Israel." Thiel has also made it clear he will not interfere in Israel's crimes and has no qualms supplying technology which leads to civilian deaths. First, in January 2024, Palantir announced that it had signed a strategic partnership with the Israeli Defense Ministry to supply technology for the genocide. In May 2024, protesters accused Thiel of complicity in genocide, blocking his vehicles for over an hour while he was speaking at the Cambridge Union. Over 200 students gathered outside the Cambridge Union, attempting to drown out Thiel's talk. When Thiel was directly questioned about his support of Israel and their use of AI technology to murder humans, he gave a rambling non-answer.
So I wanted to slow this part down because this is a very kind of compelling.
What do you think about the use of artificial intelligence or lavender by the IDF in identifying Hamas targets? And secondly, do you agree with Elon Musk about that the population decline is a risk for humanity?
Look, I'm not, without going into all the I'm not on top of all the details of what's going on in Israel because my bias is to defer to Israel.
Given that Thiel and company are willing to turn a blind eye to the crimes of Israel, it should come as no surprise that Trump's second cabinet is stacked with former and current associates of Thiel's who also share the zeal for Zionism and technocracy. While these troubling facts may be disturbing to MAGA, these connections need to be questioned. If we are ever to defeat the so-called deep state, we must commit ourselves to opposing techno-tyranny, no matter which political party, politician, or billionaire is promoting it.
So that's the deep state. So the new deep state are these people. So just so you know, there's the as Chris Hedges talked about, it's the corporatists against these new techno-feudalists and the oligarchs versus the corporatists. That's what this is about. So these are the new people taking control from the old guard, and they're the new deep state. And that's what's happening. And so Trump is, and by the way, there's a new in this big, beautiful bill. Trump and the GOP are making it illegal for states to pass any laws to control AI in their states. So why would they put that in there unless they're planning on doing stuff that they know people aren't going to want, that people are going to be so against that they would want their own state legislatures to stand up against it. They're preempting that and they're making it illegal. Trump is doing that. Trump is making it illegal for local governments. Remember, conservatism is all about taking power away from the Fed federal government and giving it to local communities. Well, he's taking that power away from local communities to stand up to all this nefarious stuff that they're planning on doing with AI and controlling your life and debanking you and giving you a state ID, a digital ID and digital banking and all that stuff. So that's in this bill too. And that's another part that I haven't even heard Rand Paul talk about that. They're just talking about the debt and the deficit. To me, this is the deep state takeover via Trump. And it's the new deep state. It's what Steve Bannon called on our show. They want a techno-feudal system where they get to rule over you and you don't get, just like you didn't get to vote for or against medical mandating the vaccine. You just couldn't go to work, or you couldn't travel, or you couldn't go to school, or you couldn't go to college. You couldn't do anything unless you took their product, which was against, that goes against everything that I've ever thought was considered liberal. That goes against everything. That goes against what did they do? The after World War II, they had the I'm blanking on the name. I'm having a bad day. But anyway, let me bring back in Derek. Derek, that's a great job you did on that, by the way.
It's overwhelming.
And the Geneva Convention. That's what I was thinking of. That goes against the Geneva Convention. And it's overwhelming. It's almost, it's what I tell people about COVID, that they were lied to on such an mind-boggling scale that people cannot wrap their brains around it, so they just try to ignore it. And I think, unfortunately, that's what a lot of people are doing right now. No one's even talking about, did you know about that part in the bill where it made it illegal for states to pass laws trying to regulate AI? Did you know about that, Derek?
I have seen that going around. I've seen had a few people share that with me, and I think you're absolutely right to emphasize that, Jimmy, because that is an important piece of the puzzle. And it should be no surprise ultimately, though, because, and first, thank you for showing my short film there. It was an effort to try to reach more people. If you look at all those people, David Sachs, obviously Palantir, Musk, et cetera, these are all people with deep connections to the AI industry. And of course, we should go back the first month of Trump's administration announcing the Stargate program with OpenAI and Oracle, other companies with CIA connections. These are all coming back from the big AI, big tech industry. So of course, this big, beautiful bill that Trump's in love with would have something like that snuck in there to keep the government off the backs of his buddies. And personally, I'm a libertarian. I'm an anarchist. I'm not somebody who rushes to government regulation as the answer for everything or even the first move. But I will say I do believe we are in an unprecedented, unique time with facial recognition combined with artificial intelligence, that it does present a very unique threat. And it seems sensible to try to find some way to limit it or control the way that it's used. And maybe that's, it's just not going to happen. It's out of the box now. But the idea that, like you said, government could then tell local bodies they can't even attempt to regulate it goes against everything that conservatism or constitutionalism is supposed to be about.
It's much scarier than people thought. It's the opposite of what MAGA. I know I have lots of lefties and union workers and military and lots of MAGA that come to my shows. I travel all over the country, including Canada. And now I'm going to the UK and Dublin, Manchester and Birmingham and Glasgow and every place. And those people who come out, they're not for this. They're again. In fact, they're diametrically opposed to this thing that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are ushering in. And I had Whitney Webb on the show months and months ago, and she kind of talked about this exact thing too, and who Peter Thiel is beholden to and who Trump is beholden to. And I didn't really see it playing out as clearly as I do now. In that video, your documentary really illuminates it for someone like me, and now I get it. And so I'll be opposing it. And
could I mention one more name, Jimmy?
Sure.
Just one more name. Sorry to cut you off, but one more name that I think you and the audience might want to be aware of is, in addition to the people you just mentioned, there is Curtis Yarvin.
Yes.
Curtis Yarvin is the man who actually he's the thinker behind these men. And I wrote an article a few months back at The Last American Vagabond called Meet the Man Whose Philosophy Has Been Guiding Peter Thiel and the Technocrats. And I heard you mention JD Vance earlier, and I just wanted to share this real quick section that for those, I didn't know about this till I wrote the article, but back in 2021, JD Vance was on this podcast called Jack Murphy Live. And I don't know anything about the guy or the podcast, but it's a conservative podcast. This is when he was just running as a Senate candidate in Ohio. And folks might remember that Peter Thiel is the one who gave him $21 million. It was the biggest financial contribution at the time. It may still be, and who helped him become Ohio senator, which then catapulted him, of course, to the vice presidency. And during this interview with Jack Murphy, Vance said, quote, "I think what Trump should do, if I was giving him one piece of advice, fire every single mid-level bureaucrat, every civil servant in the administrative state, replace them with our people, and then when the courts stop you, stand before the country and say, the Chief Justice has made his ruling, now let him enforce it." And, which is kind of what Trump is doing now. But then later on in the interview, who does JD Vance give credit to these ideas? He says, quote, "So there's this guy, Curtis Yarvin, who's written all about some of these things. And so I just want people to look into Curtis Yarvin, his sort of dark enlightenment, neo-reactionary movement. He has, for the longest time, said very much what the technocrats describe, what I described in that documentary, that the voters are too stupid to know what's good for them, that the business capitalist class is not really doing our work, and instead we need to have and at the head of that, this is Democrats fought for. So this is the guy who has influenced the thinking of Peter Thiel and JD Vance, who's the vice president and next in line for the White House. I think people should look more at him as well and the ideas that he's been promoting for the last decade.
Yes, Curtis Yarvin is the thought leader for all these people. And so you know what? That's a great idea. I should do a segment on Curtis Yarvin because nobody knows who that guy is. And he's actually the quiet guy behind the scenes that nobody knows, who's pulling the strings on all this stuff. He's the guy they all follow, and they say so publicly. So
there's an article on Yarvin in the New Yorker, and it's called "Curtis Yarvin's Plot Against America," June 2nd, 2025, just came out.
Oh, really? Okay, so maybe we'll cover that on Friday.
Wow.
All right, Derek Bros, I appreciate all your information and sharing your documentary with us and letting me play it on my show. Everybody, where should people go where's the best place for people to find you? TheConsciousResistance.com?
TheConsciousResistance.com has been my website since 2013, so you'll find my podcast, my documentaries, my books, all that there. And of course, you can find me on Twitter, on all the social media. If people want more about my journalism, I will mention you can check out my free 17-part documentary series called The Pyramid of Power. I'll come back and talk to you about that sometime, Jimmy, because it goes deep into the education system, big tech, et cetera, and progressively gets deeper. And in about a month, we're going to be releasing the final 17th episode, trying to answer the question of who or what is at the top of this pyramid. And I think it's unlike any other work we've seen. It's not a conspiracy documentary. It's a true crime documentary. Again, everybody can watch it for free at thepyramidofpower.net. And I appreciate you having me on tonight, Jimmy, and thanks for all that you're doing.
Okay, thank you. Derek Bros. Everybody check him out. Come see us on tour in Glasgow, Manchester, Belfast, Dublin, Liverpool, Birmingham, and London. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. Hey, check out this recent interview I did that delves into the harm caused by plastic nanoparticles and aflatoxins. Tap the video link right here to watch now.